approximately $700 for every student who fills out a valid form. They could be sitting in the class and they could say, I'm only here because I need a credit. Well, they might not count. So we collect these forms, we validate them, and we try to steer kids as best as we can into courses and programs that make sense for their career trajectory, which is where counseling comes in, which is where career exploration activities come in. Over the course of time, this is what enrollment in our programs of study in the high school. This does not include ACTI. These are what the numbers have looked like over the course of time. And it all depends, and it'll shift based on those forms. This year, first semester numbers look like this. So we have an agriculture program, as many of you know, communications, engineering, accounting, administrative assistant, secretarial science, and sales, distribution, and marketing. And you can see some of the participation numbers out there in blue. So in total, 248 students filled out such forms for the very first semester. We'll do it again. Sometimes students might be in a course in one program and a course in another program. At the end of the year, you can only be part of one program of study. And we sort all that out. I bring it up because if you ever come into the high school and you think like, wow, this is a well-equipped school, and it really is. We have to work for it. And it's important to know that we work to take the burden off of local taxpayers too. So we go after state money that's available. We go after federal money that's available. And it turns into well-functioning, well-equipped classrooms. And I'll just give you a brief little tour. And I've attached some numbers to some of these items. Sometimes it's just a descriptor. There you can see a floral refrigerator that we purchased, over $4,500. Hydroponic system out in our greenhouses. I'll quickly say we're exploring new greenhouses right now too. They've been worn, they've been used, so we're exploring some avenues for that currently. We pay for things like FFA memberships and the dues that come along with that. There's a particular rule that requires every student in an ag class to be an FFA member, so we feel compelled to try to subsidize the dues that they need to pay to be part of that organization. And that comes from federal money. We use Perkins money for that. Industrial grade binders, we have students that will do yearbooks for elementary schools and things of that nature, programs. It's not easy for teachers to learn how to run these things and then teach kids either. So if you ever wonder what tech ed teachers do on professional development days, they do things like learning how to run machines like this. And it's not simple. Paper cutters, I put this in here. This is a $22,000 piece of equipment that came from local money back in 98, 99 school year. And I bring it up because we're looking to replace this with Perkins money. So instead of putting a $27,000 budget line in our school's budget, I've already fished for this through the supplemental equipment grant, and I should be able to access enough money to buy a new one, which is needed. Though we've been able to keep this one going with care and maintenance over the course of time, but a backup will be used. Screen printers and graphics, t-shirt dryers, those graphics need to dry, paper drills, embroidery machines, also a complicated piece of equipment. From cameras to studio lights to green screens, all Perkins money. A TriCaster to manage video feeds and graphics whenever we do productions in the studio. They use this whenever we live stream graduation ceremonies, and students run these machines, and they're better off for it when they head out into the workforce. Sound room, supplemental equipment grant, interactive multi-touch screens, tables, supplemental equipment grant. Cricut machines in the business department. They make the T-shirts that they sell in the school store. This equipment is used for that process. 3D printers in engineering. Structural stress analyzers. Everybody should know how to operate one of those. I'm still working on that, though. Industrial planers, laser cutters, sanding tables, lathes, software products, engineering software in this instance. Right now, and we're getting close to the end, we've been working on growing our capacity to offer industry recognized certifications to as many students that are in our programs as possible. OSHA a general industry certification is something that is useful no matter where you go, and we pay to have students certified for those programs, and that's on the rise. This is new this year in engineering, this multimeter training and certification set. Perkins grant money paid for that. So we'll start certifying students to use multimeters, and it's something they can put on their resume. Dairy Farmers of America has a number of different credentials that we're offering in our ag program, and there's a specific OSHA ag credential that some of our students in agriculture picked up last year. In the business realm, we have students earning certifications in Microsoft, PowerPoint, Excel, Word. They go after the associate level first, and then some of them move on and become expert level credentialed. Adobe Illustrator in our communications technology SIP is another credential that some of our students are getting. So last year we had about 50 students earn credentials that graduated with that. Students that progress through these programs, if they're concentrators and finish, they'll take a NOCTI exam too. But industries sometimes don't recognize what a NOCTI exam is, which is why industry credentials are on the rise, because people know what Microsoft Word is and an expert credential in that. We still have to test students in a NOCTI, and some of those performances I think matter down the road, but I think the industry credentials are something that is becoming increasingly important. That's it in a nutshell. I felt, again, compelled to kind of share where some of this money goes, and if you walk through our classrooms and observe what happens in those programs, and talk to kids about their experiences in those programs, thinking about a conversation I had with one of our graduates who's at the University of South Carolina right now in a mechanical engineering program. I just talked to this young man at the end of winter break, and he was sharing that when he went off to college, he was far and above in terms of preparation compared to his classmates because of what he experienced in some of his classes in the high school in our engineering program. And when you hear stories like that, you understand how important it is to access top-of-the-line equipment and support top-notch teachers to do what they do with the equipment, with the kids in these programs. So it takes a lot of work and coordination, but it's worth it. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Lusk. Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Lusk while we still have him?
Thank you, Vice President Dickerson. Mr. Lusk, just a couple of quick questions. Pretty impressive, and thank you for sharing all this tonight. How does our equipment overall, based on your knowledge, how does it compare with most industry standards? Are the equipment that we have pretty similar? I wouldn't imagine it's going to be right up to the cutting edge, but I'm hopeful that it's equipment that might be used in the private sector out there that really helps give our kids an edge.
Well, as many of you who have been here for a number of years understand that we have occupational advisory committees, and those folks from local businesses and industries advise our teachers on what they should be considering for purchases. And they'll tell you, for instance, the binder. If a student can run this, if they come to GraphCom, they can run ours.
Right.
And though it might not be the exact same machine, they understand that the skills and I think the comfort that kids develop by working on the equipment that we have, they're on their way and will be able to run whatever's next. But we're well equipped. And now we're at the point where sometimes, when a supplemental equipment grant comes up, it's like, what do we need to buy? We don't have a long list, so then we start to project, out 5 years, 10 years as we try to figure out what to spend Perkins money on, which is why we can spend on some software and we can pay for industry credentials, right now, and then try to, plan things out over the long haul to make sure that we maintain what we need to maintain. The answer is yes. Is it the same as you might find out there? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on what we're talking about. But we get a good advice from local industry partners and do our best to make sure that our students are training on what they need to train on.
Yeah. Thank you. I was a little surprised by the breakdown of numbers in certain areas. For example, I think there was well over 50 students that are in the ag program, future farmers types of thing, which is fantastic. But I'm surprised it's as high as that. The numbers in the business administrative area seems to be a little low based upon what I perceive to be the needs in the community. But I think the certifications are terrific. I'm in the process of trying to learn how to work QuickBooks currently. It can do a lot of things. I would think it would be very practical for a lot of, especially small businesses out there. There's a real need for that. So I'm surprised that our numbers are pretty low in that area. And I know a lot of it, I guess, comes back to the instructors and how they market and sell their programs and whatnot. Is there anything there on that surprises you or in comparison to previous years that is a little bit different or significant?
The numbers in the business area have always been low, which is one reason we added two SIP programs, 2 programs of study onto accounting. We've run accounting for a long time. We've never had a large number of students complete that program. We've always had a few, and those that do, we've had some students do really well on an Octi test, and we have students earning QuickBooks certifications, and we decided for that reason that we should offer something a little more general in nature for students who might just steer away from something like accounting. As important as it is, sometimes it takes till you're an adult to realize that. Not always, but sometimes. So that's why we started the sales distribution and marketing, because we do have a lot of students interested in marketing. But that's a newer program. Just a couple years ago, we started that program, as well as the secretarial science administrative assistant program. We like to just call that office management. But the certifications, like you said, that go along with those are applicable, pretty broadly. But it's important to know, we'll have a student, and I'll say, let's say, agriculture. They're going to be in the ag program. And as they work through that program, if we know that they want to be a small business owner, we'll steer students that are in the ag program to take accounting or something in the business realm. They don't count in accounting or any of the other business programs because they're in ag. And there's a lot of overlap like that in our high school, and that's okay. That's good. But that doesn't give you another number in business because they're already somewhere else.
Gotcha. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And I just think those certifications and resume builders, I just hope and wish our student body takes advantage of those things. Sometimes you don't realize it until after you graduate that you could go back and do some of those things. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lusk, I just have do you have, or are you guys planning to add any new programs in the next 5 years, let's say? Do you have anything on the list of something you want to start?
We're not. I'd like to see the programs at ACTI grow. The programs we offer at our school aren't. You're never going to have communications at an ACTI. You're not going to have accounting there. There's going to be a different type of program. The programs that we think our students need are probably going to be under that umbrella and not our own. We actually might consolidate the business programs. We knew we needed to grow from accounting, and now we're not quite sure whether we need 3 programs. So, in a year or 2, we might look at that and just see where the numbers lie and consolidate from 3 programs to 2 programs. That's yet to be determined, but that's something. So we might actually cut one, if anything. We're always open to it, if we see the need. And that's why when I talk about the time and intensity of this, there's a lot of projecting, looking at the numbers locally, looking at the numbers around the state and seeing what the market offers in terms of demand. If the demand's there, then we consider it. But those are conversations that we have every year.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I just wanted to echo what Al said about, commending the efforts towards certifications. I think that's an incredible way to help remove barriers for kids that are going out into the workforce. I think if I'm reflecting on what happened for post-college for a lot of teachers, right, the certifications there are hundreds of dollars that you're paying for. So obviously varies from industry to industry, but a very helpful way to remove barriers, and commend you guys on that.
I'll just point out that beyond special education, career and technical programs are probably the most regulated arena, which is why it requires a significant amount of oversight by Mr. Lusk and the instructors. Those money amounts that he showed there, there are more hoops for those funds than there are for probably funds of similar value. I think Belinda would probably agree, but they're just it's a lot of work, and I know that they do the work because there are students that are going to school every day because they're really tied to one of those programs and they love it. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lusk. Appreciate it. Moving on to number 6, items for board action. So 6.1 is the Act 1 resolution. This is where the board is going to discuss taking action to adopt the 25-26 budget resolution, which is a number of 4.8% that will be not exceeded. Belinda, do you have anything you want to add to that? Is there any questions or comments from board members?
This is the annual process. This is just indicating that we will not exceed that. So otherwise, if it's not approved, we need to prepare a budget, and we're not in a position to do that at this particular point in time.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve 6.1, Act 1 resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All right, roll call. Tim?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we're going to move on
Mr.
to, sorry, go ahead.
Could we have informational items separated?
Sure. So we have 7.1 through 7.6. Which one would you like separated?
7-2.
Okay. Have a motion to separate 7.2 on the football cooperative sponsorship with Fairfield.
You want to separate it and move it to another agenda? Is that what?
I like to table it for another.
Next agenda? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that was
Okay.
part of the record.
All right, so your motion would be to table 7.2 for discussion for next meeting when we have a full quorum.
Yes.
I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any questions on tabling 7.2 to the next meeting for information item?
I'm just trying to understand, since it's just informational, why we can't start that discussion now.
Yeah, there was some board members that had expressed concern about not being here and having discussed it, and plus had some scheduling conflicts. So I think due to the nature of this one and the public interest, I think we just want to have a full quorum.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
If we have some questions for our athletic department, would you like to have those in advance, Dr. Perrin?
I think,
The reason I asked, the key question for me, unless things have changed since I was in the game, if we do accept Fairfield for football, we have to accept their total enrollment of male students 9 through 12. Does that move us into a higher category for district playoffs? If it doesn't, it's not as much of an issue for me. If it does, then it's something I have to think about.
to answer the very first question that you asked, I would say if you have any specific questions for any departments, even athletics, just send them to Jeff and I, and then one of us will get back to you.
Okay, thank you, will do.
To answer your second question, Mr. Moyer, and speaking with the athletic department during budget discussions, at this particular point in time, they're not sure that it would throw us into the next category. That always remains to be seen as we develop the program, as if action is taken, then it become a part of Gettysburg Area School District's athletic program. So at this stage, it is not anticipated to move us into the next range level.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you. That's an important thought for me.
I just have one other question before we vote on tabling it. Tabling it, I assume, means that then the next meeting, when more people are able to be present, that it is still an information item?
Correct. Yeah, I think just completely frankly, I think most of the members of this board, the first that any of us heard about it was from articles in the local newspapers. And you know, because it's football is a big part of the community, we knew there'd probably be lots of questions, and folks would like the time to digest it. And having our president and another board member not present, I think it deserves just potentially tabling it and having everyone here, having time to develop questions and get those sent in for answers before we move further.
Sure. Do we also have, given what it is that we're looking at, there is time to do that, I would assume, given the time frame of figuring that out? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a request of us, so I
Okay.
think that we're on our time frame.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, so roll call to separate, or I'm sorry, to table 7.2. Roll call is Al.
Yes.
Alice.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, so that leaves 7.1, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6. I guess we can get a motion to, do we want to go through those separately? Do you want to discuss them?
Yeah, there's no vote on those, so it's simply we'll have whoever's in charge of each area share any pertinent information, and if there are questions, folks can ask.
Yeah, and for the folks watching, I mean, the agenda's been posted, but 7.1 is for a tax collector compensation resolution. 7.3 is the LIU general operating budget for 25-26. 7.4 is our district's academic calendar for 25-26. 7.5 was policy 610 purchases subject to bid and quotation. And then 7.6, administrative guideline for policy 610, purchases subject to bid or quotation. So those are all on the agenda.
So, Lynn, is there anything specific that you want to share about the tax collector compensation resolution or the LIU general operating budget?
I believe the tax collector's compensation comes every 4 years, and we have historically provided the same percent to our tax collectors. And so I think it's actually written in legislative law that you were required to have the approval of the tax collectors. And as for, the LIU budget, I don't have a lot of information to share at this particular time, other than that this is in the annual renewal process is just the same, so the
Right,
board has to approve the LIU's budget, which is the overarching process of how the LIU operates.
A quick comment on the LIU budget. During the comprehensive planning process that's being facilitated by Dr. Matster, I learned from some of the staff in our breakout sessions that the LIU is going through a pretty major restructuring process where there's going to be a lot more ownership of classes, even students with a high degree of needs that are coming back to the school systems. And the LIU's role is going to change somewhat significantly, more in the area of consulting with us and providing us, being a resource and that type of thing. So I think it would be appropriate, Dr. Matz, I don't know if you agree or disagree, if we would have someone from the IU, maybe their executive director or someone who could address this large restructuring process as it relates, and then also as it relates to the impact of the budget that we're going to approve for the IU. Maybe I misunderstood from my comprehensive planning committee meetings, but actually, Dr. Matzo, I do pay attention every once in a while.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. No, and you're not incorrect. I know there is some restructuring or some the IU going through some changes, but I know a lot of it has to do for us as a district personally with the number of students that we send to other districts for special services and the money that we spend to do that. We could save a little bit of money by starting to open those classes on our own and working closely with our director of student services and our special ed supervisor, coming up with that plan to start bringing some of those classes back so that money doesn't necessarily have to leave us, and we would be able to use it here instead.
Yeah, we take a yearly approach, look at that, any time that it's cost effective to pull programs back in the district, we do that. There's been talk about a shift at the IU with regards to how they roll out some of their programming. I see it more of almost a shift in terms of them moving towards some of the things that they're really good at, like instructional technology, is kind of really where a lot of their focus might be over the next few years. So for a variety of reasons, it's yes to all those questions. We could be taking back more classrooms, A, because it benefits us fiscally, B, because it benefits our kids staying in our buildings, C, because we have more control over staffing. There's probably a D as well, but those top three are enough for me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate having that information. I would just say it's been my experience that I think most of the benefits are going to be just that, benefits, but sometimes there can also be a downside by trying to maintain some pretty high students with pretty high degree of needs and whatnot, and we have to look at the impact that has on our building and our school environment and all that as well. So I think that it would really be good for us to hear from one of the IU personnel or higher level people there that could maybe share a little bit what is their overall plan, and then we need to make sure that we're getting a good bang for our buck. Thank you.
And just as a reminder, because the board will see this obviously as an action item at the LIU budget as an action item next meeting, the thing that folks just need to be aware of is that we end up only paying for what we utilize. So, you start off with X amount and then the money gets reconciled at the end of the year. So if you end up using less or using more, but you pay for the services that you utilize. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Are there any other questions or comments on the information items? All right, moving on to board committee reports.
Mr. President, or Acting President, been at Finance Committee, met Thursday. We just discussed, of course, the 5-year plan that we always go over. We addressed and talked about the potential repairs, as Mr. Luss said, to the greenhouse at the school. Talked about the potential repairs and project for the stadium. And I talked about potential HVAC repairs to this very building, administration building. So, and trying to make those projects. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have anything from ACTI this evening?
I do. So just a little information, ACTI, we did hire a new director, the JOC did, that will start, I believe, in April. ACTI is currently on the lookout for property or building that they could expand into to create more opportunities for our kids. The current director, the new director, I think is going to be working together to put forth something that will then be given to a presentation that would be given to all ascending districts and boards, explaining to us what that looks like for all of our schools and for our taxpayers with the, the new project, trying to move forward with something that we can better suits our kids and our needs. So, yeah, it's just a lot of discussion going on right now. We're definitely, we've got a little traction moving in the right direction. So we're trying to collaborate, get a lot of information gathered up so that we can give the ascending districts exactly, where we're at and what we're up against and what we're looking to do.
Okay, thank you. Al, anything on the legislative front?
There's a lot going on with committees, education committees being assigned. I look forward to trying to make some contact with them and continue to bang away at the grievances I have, and I think most of us have, with the way cyber charter schools are funded. More to come on that later.
All right, thanks, Al. And the policy committee will reconvene the second Tuesday of February, which is February 11th at 4 p.m. here in the administration building. And that brings us to program reports. Dr. Perrin, anything?
I continue to watch weather very closely. That's what I do. Yeah.
Yep, it is that time of year.
Can I ask something on that for a minute? What do we have in place for buses that break down, don't pick up kids? What's taking place there? Because as a parent and on the school board, this morning my kids weren't picked up, and no one on Knoxville and Ortana Road was picked up. We were giving rides to people all along the road because a bus never showed up. Parents aren't notified, as far as I know. I wasn't notified, so what are we doing about that? Because it's going to be, 4 degrees tomorrow morning again?
Yeah, I know for tomorrow morning, we have a 2-hour delay, of course, but I do know
We
what
did today,
happened.
too.
What happened today was several of the bus companies did not provide the additive in order to make sure, in order to start the buses early on, to make sure they were running right. As for a fallout plan, I know we're short on drivers and buses to start. I don't know that it was anticipated because the thought was everyone was going to be adding the additive for the cold weather snap that we were having, and we had 5 buses in total that had this particular situation happen. And we've learned that, too, that those 5 buses were all buses that were held at the bus driver's residency rather than the garage. So it's being addressed, and so hopefully we don't have the same situation as for tomorrow.
I hear you, but parents don't care about the excuses. Their kids are out in the cold. So
Obviously.
my expectation tomorrow that there should be none of this, correct?
Well, our hope is that's the hope, yes,
Right.
yeah.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention because obviously I don't know if any other board members got flack, but I know I got it today, and plus I was one of them. So that's all I have.
Thank you for sharing.
And it was consistent throughout other districts as well.
Do we have a way of notifying those routes or those students that are affected by that if we know that's going to happen? Because that was part of Ryan's question.
Right.
So,
I know we're working on, there's the individual notification system is not specific to the bus, it's specific to the school. So we're working on a system. Obviously, we need to further work on it. As what I know is the communication that goes to the building, and then the buildings notify appropriately. Until we can get a proper notification through the transportation system to make those calls, is something that's going to be a work in progress for us.
Can't we just
A
send
workaround would be Vanessa sending something out in social media saying,
That's what I would say. We can just send
Yeah.
it to everybody. I mean, it may or may not affect your children, but at least
Yeah, if
people
we're-
would be on the lookout for it.
we could do social media posts, yeah.
or your email chain or whatever, we get all those other announcements. Why can't we send something out to everybody? Who
Just send
cares
around,
if you don't like it,
doesn't
delete
affect you,
it.
it doesn't affect you, but you know that bus 3 isn't going to make it today, or whatever the case may be. Oh, it's not my bus.
They all eventually finished their routes, but some were late, given the issues that were previously discussed.
And I guess my other question is too, is not just about the buses, but like, especially like the elementary kids that go to Lincoln and they walk to school in these temperatures. Like, I don't know, I don't know what the solution to that is, but I wouldn't want my kid walking in 4-degree weather to school.
I mean, my previous district used -20 as a cutoff. In Adams, generally speaking, we've used -10 wind chill, not regular temperature, but real feel. -10 or below, we don't want that. But if our real feel's 0 or above, we would tend to roll. That's why, though, I look at it. Even though we call it delay this evening for tomorrow, I still look at it in the morning to see if that's shifted at all overnight, just because obviously we care about the same things that you just mentioned. Yeah.
Well, just to add to that, we all know the appropriate clothing to wear. Some of these people don't have the appropriate clothing to wear, so just keep that in mind when we're making decisions that maybe, for whatever means, can't dress properly. I'm just throwing that out there, because driving into school, I see that sometimes.
And I do have a question speaking to that. I'm pretty sure we still have the clothing bank, so to speak, especially for the elementary kids at Lincoln. If somebody could put a mass email or something out to hey, if your child does not have an adequate coat, to contact so-and-so, see if we have something for them so that child has a proper coat for these conditions.
We can share that
Dr.
with us.
McFarland, Mr. Lusk, we do that already, don't we? I'm guessing as principals?
We do, but I'm with Mr. Morris that I see a lot of kids, but I deal with adults who can make better decisions, well, young adults in the making that should be able to make better decisions on outerwear. I do worry about the kids and, whether they're making those decisions for themselves or not. It's a concern. We have clothes. We have coats. We have a closet. So if people they should ask. We can absolutely help them. But I think everybody needs be a little more mindful of what's appropriate for temperatures like this.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on program reports?
If I may, just 2 updates.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sigmund asked a little earlier as to the update as to the demographic study. The gentleman, Mr. Fordham, heard from him on Friday, and he is working on the 10-year projection, what was discussed into the design of the demographic study. He is working on it, so relatively soon we should be seeing a report. Is the only thing that I can provide as an update. I don't necessarily have the time frame, but relatively soon is hoping that it's within the next 2 months is what we're hoping for. As for the audit, we are working with the government-wide statements. The audit is pretty much done. Other than the fixed assets as well as the government-wide statements, we'll be providing an update here to the board in February.
All right, thank you, Belinda. So that brings us to a calendar of board events. So our next board meeting will be a regular board meeting, and it's scheduled for February 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom. And with that, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.